Top 15 most expensive items ever traded on Pawn Stars.
Just a reminder of how you can enter our new giveaway in which you can win a new iPhone 12 Pro or a new MacBook Pro. Just leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and watch the whole video till the end.
1. 1932 Lincoln Roadster. It is not very often that Rick makes a deal with a seller that ends with him giving someone actual gold in exchange for an item, let alone a 1932 Lincoln Roadster. But when he was approached by the owner, who goes by the name Uncle Phil, of a 1932 Lincoln Roadster, he was drooling at the chance of owning such a rare vintage vehicle. Uncle Phil got the car from a museum a few years ago and was looking to get $100,000 for it, nothing less. This beautiful ride might be worth the $100,000 he was looking for, but Rick deals in a buy and sell business, and this type of item would be tough to sell because of such a limited market. Uncle Phil was not going to negotiate until the idea of selling him gold came about, and the deal was struck for $95,000. 2. 2001 New England Patriots Super Bowl championship ring. Former New England Patriots defensive back Brock Williams showed up at the shop one day ready to make a deal for his commemorative 2001 Super Bowl championship ring. It is not often that an actual Super Bowl championship ring makes it into the shop, so Rick was giddy with excitement over the ring when he saw it. What made this ring so collectible was how ridiculously beautiful it was, covered with 143 diamonds and is made of 14-karat white gold. It was the first time a ring exceeded the NFL's rule on expensive limits. Rick ended up buying it for $2,000 as collateral for a loan and kept it after Brock never returned to get it. It is now worth $100,000. 3. 1922 Proof Piece High Relief Dollar. One of the rarest coins in American history is the 1922 Proof Piece High Relief Dollar coin. If you ask any coin collector, they would tell you that not only is this one of the most amazing coins you will ever see on Pawn Stars, they would love to own a Proof Piece dollar coin, and not just this one. It is one of those few coins that are legends in the denomination universe. The seller of the coin ended up winning it in a card game and wanted $20,000 for it when he came into the building. But after an expert came in and took a look at it, that price shot up to $100,000. After Rick figured out a good price point, $80,000, a deal was struck and both parties walked away happy. 4. Stephen Stills' 1941 Gibson SJ200 guitar. Stephen Stills was a member of the rock and roll group Crosby, Stills and Nash, and is a legendary guitar player. When a young man showed up with it in the shop, it did not take very long before an expert verified the authenticity of it. Jesse, his local guitar expert, loved the guitar, a rare 1941 Gibson SJ200, and even let the owner know about it. The guitar itself was worth $75,000 at least, but being owned by Stephen Stills turned that price up another $20,000. After he left, the negotiating began with the seller looking for $90,000, but Rick offered $85,000 and eventually struck a deal. One of the reasons Rick loves guitars is because of how quickly they fly off the shelves at pawn shops. 5. 200 pounds of silver. The owner, Jeff, of 200 pounds or 3,000 ounces of pure silver, decided it was time to get paid on the investment his father told him about when he was younger. So he wheeled into the shop with sacks and bags of silver. From bars to coins, everything was pure silver. The only issue was a giant silver bar that might have been filled with other metals, so Rick had to test it, which was cool to see how that was done, but found out it was the real deal. The offer then came in for $111,000, but that was the absolute most they could do for the silver because of the limited amount of profit margin it would bring him. 6. 4 1-kilo gold bars. You just read about the time Rick purchased 200 pounds of silver, but what about the time he ran into a seller looking to unload 4 1-kilogram gold bars, an item that looks like something from an action film? These gold bars were beautiful, and if you never have held a gold bar, it is definitely a rare find for the Harrison boys. Since they have not purchased every single high-dollar item that has found its way into the shop, this is one of their biggest purchases ever, having made a deal that allowed them to take the 4 bars and flip them quickly for $128,000. 7. Ides of March Roman coin. Some stories are just too amazing to be true, like the one about this Roman coin called the Ides of March, and its 2,000-year-old existence. The coin was brought in by a collector named John, who bought it back in the mid-'80s from another collector. He knew exactly what he was in possession of, and when asked to make a deal, he said he wanted $150,000. After Rick brought in a coin expert to authenticate the validity of the coin, the expert quickly advised Rick to purchase this coin after stating that it was easily worth $150,000. The coin's owner felt good about his sales price and would not go below $140,000. A deal was never struck, and the coin left with John. 8. Mary Ford's 1961 Gibson SG Les Paul guitar. Guitars have always been one of the more valuable items to come through the pawn shops. The ones that date back to the rock era tend to be worth a ton, and always seem to find themselves making it into the shop like this one did. The only difference is that the owner of the guitar showed it to Rick and then said it belonged to his Aunt Mary, and she used to play it with her husband, Les Paul. It was one of those moments that remains one of the greatest in Pawn Stars history, because they were looking at a 1961 Gibson SG Les Paul guitar that was played by the wife of the man who created it. It's like having Babe Ruth's grandson bring in a signed rookie card of him. It does not get much better than that. After an expert confirmed the value of it to be close to $150,000, a deal was made for $90,000. 9. Original Where the Wild Things Are artwork. As Pawn Stars continues to get bigger and bigger, each and every single year, so does Rick's bank account. He's gone from making some cool deals in his shop to traveling to private sellers and local dealers to make offers on extremely rare and unique items that are worth enormous amounts of cash. This one in particular remains one of the coolest, and that has to do with how rare it is. He was approached by a dealer that had original artwork for the book Where the Wild Things Are, and that made them one of a kind. The original asking price was $350,000, but Rick made a play for them at $250,000, and a deal was done. 10. JFK Cigar Humidor. Since there are not very many of former President John F. Kennedy's cigar humidors floating around, whenever one shows up like this, the value of it can be mixed. The box even featured some untouched cigars, also belonging to the former president, but in order to figure out a value, it was going to take a little research. When it showed up at the store, Rick knew he had something of value and had a price in mind. After some tough negotiations, a deal was made for $60,000. Sotheby's managed to find another one and auctioned it off for $575,000. That pretty much means this item is worth every single penny. 11. Jimi Hendrix's 1963 Fender Stratocaster guitar. One of the most amazing items to ever come into the shop was Jimi Hendrix's 1963 Fender Stratocaster electric guitar. The serial number on the back of the guitar was the quickest way for them to identify it as the real deal, because that specific guitar is actually a documented Jimi Hendrix played guitar. When the owner brought it into the shop, he knew it had a ton of value, but was blown away when the guitar expert revealed his numbers of $750,000 to $1 million. That was when one of the coolest moments turned into one of the ugliest. Rick heard the numbers and tried to offer him $500,000 right out of the gate. His next offer was $600,000, and the owner knew it was not even close to fair. It was almost an insulting offer for something that could fetch close to $1 million at an auction, and the owner walked away with it firmly in his grasp. 12. The Beatles' original contract. When it comes to music, the Beatles are among the 5 greatest musical groups of all time. Their music is timeless and continues to be played in 2020. They have sold 600 million albums around the world and have had 20 Billboard #1 hit songs since they decided to form the group nearly 60 years ago. But none of that would have been possible without an official contract, which was written up and signed by John Lennon, George Harrison, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and their manager Brian Epstein back in 1962. That original, and the only one in the world today, was brought into the store one day and the seller wanted a cool $1 million in cash for it, not a penny less. It was a bit much, and they simply had to pass. 13. Robosaurus. There are only a few things that have ever passed through the doors of the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop that were almost impossible to pass on, and the Robosaurus was easily one of them. The Robosaurus is a 40-foot-tall robotic Tyrannosaurus Rex robot that can breathe fire and crush vehicles using his robotic hands. It is a legendary robot that was built in 1989 by Doug Malowicki and has been featured on television and almost even got its own series on NBC in 1992. The owner's asking price was $5 million. To avoid offending the inventor of this amazing robot, they decided not to even counter with an offer, and they just had to let it walk. 14. O.J. Simpson's white Ford Bronco. O.J. Simpson's white Ford Bronco that he was in the day the LAPD was going to arrest him is one of the most iconic celebrity vehicles of all time. When he found out the police were coming, he panicked and took off, with Al Cowlings as the driver, in the Ford Bronco. The pursuit turned into one of the most watched moments on television because nearly 130 million people tuned in to watch as he tried to outrun the cops. When it was brought to him for purchase, Rick almost could not turn away from this incredibly rare piece of American history. However, the owner was looking for $1.25 million, leaving Rick with a choice to make. He eventually had to pass. 15. George Washington's three-piece Colonial suit. In honor of Pawn Star's 500th episode, they decided they were going to do things a bit differently and go after big-ticket items. So Rick headed off to see Brian, a private dealer in regards to some presidential memorabilia that he was looking to sell. But when Brian unveiled the item, it was a three-piece suit once worn by George Washington back in the 1750s. After the suit was unveiled, Rick was amazed and really wanted to buy it. But Brian, who bought it in an auction, was not really looking to sell and threw out an asking price of $3 million. He dropped it down to $2.5 million, but a deal never happened, and Rick had to walk away empty-handed.
Thank you for watching the video till the end. We hope that you loved today's video. And do hit the like button and do subscribe to our channel for amazing new videos.